Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Young Bucks Outdoors podcast. I am your host, Matthew Austin Taylor, and today we are wrapping up our mini-series in which we are sharing some of our favorite stories as outdoorsmen, and I am joined today by Mr. Clayton Hicks. Now, to give you a little bit of foreshadowing, though, here, Clayton is a very dedicated hunter, and that's good in a lot of ways, but it does also get him into a lot of trouble. So stay tuned to see what I mean, and also feel free to share the podcast with friends, family, acquaintances, anybody you think might enjoy this podcast. Please feel free to share it with them. We just want to be able to share our love of the outdoors with people, and maybe in some cases even get people to get involved or want to try things out, So please feel free to share this podcast with anybody and everybody. You can find us on most platforms that do podcasts, and we also post these episodes on our YouTube page, and then also follow us on all of our social media. Anyways, without further ado, let's just get on into it. Clayton, nice to have you back again.
Yeah, glad to be back. I'm excited to share today, and I'm going to share a couple stories that are just fun and silly, and hope bring you guys a little laugh.
All right, coolio. Well, we'll just kind of get right into it, and I'll let you take off. You mentioned you had a couple stories you wanted to share, so...
Yeah. So a few of these stories happen in Colorado, where my family goes every summer for vacation, and I've just had a lot of fun up there with Keaton and Kendall, and then some other friends too. And this story happened a few years back, probably when I was like a sophomore in high school. My dad and I and my whole family were up in Buena Vista, Colorado, vacationing, and my dad and I were out fly fishing, and we were fly fishing this little stream, pretty narrow, but it had some really nice beaver ponds in it that were deep and held a lot of fish, and we were mostly fishing for little brown trout and then brook trout, and they're just a lot of fun to catch, and you can sometimes catch a lot of them. And so in this stream we were fishing, and we were having a great time catching fish. And if you've never been up in the mountains of Colorado, it can rain. It rains a lot. For like an hour every afternoon it'll sprinkle or rain. And it'll do that almost every day, like clockwork.
Just cause, right?
Yeah, just cause. It's Colorado, and it's the mountains, and there's just, moisture and stuff up there, and it's just, the weather can blow up real quick, and but it's either or you have, it could be real sunny, and just you're up there in the mountains and it's sunny, you could get a real easy sunburn,
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, me and my dad were up there fishing, and I caught this little brook trout, and it was just like the most beautiful fish, and it was a pretty decent sized one, and I was right on the edge of this beaver pond, and actually this little brook trout was in this beaver pond that was about 8 or 9 feet deep. Which is pretty deep, a little, pretty deep little portion of the stream there. I mean, most of the stream was ankle deep, but then, there were these spots where these beavers had made a pond,
mm-hmm.
and I was fighting this little brook trout, just, trying to be real gentle, kind of having fun, and lo and behold, this brook trout swims to the bottom of the pond and gets tangled over the only stick down there. Like, literally, this pond is crystal clear.
Oh,
I can see the whole thing, and I can see exactly where this fish gets tangled. And it's, like, tangled upside down, and, like, I wasn't even fighting. I wasn't even pulling on the string anymore. Like, it was stuck. And I just felt, like, super bad. I was like, man, I got to get this fish out. And right about the time I started to do that, like, it was full of cloud. The sky was full of clouds, and it was, like, up there in the mountains, it probably got down to, like, 60 degrees. It was in the summer, but
yeah.
I was like, man, I got to do something. And that stream water, too, it's all snow melt off. So it's just freezing cold.
Oh, my God.
But anyway, I went ahead and stripped down to my underwear. And I took my socks off and everything. And just got down to my underwear. And I swam to the bottom of that beaver pond. And I saved that fish's life.
Dude,
and
what a trooper.
Yeah, that's one of my favorite little stories from Colorado. I enjoy that one a lot.
I do want to piggyback that one because you just reminded me of, and I wasn't there personally, but I remember getting a video because I think you might have been with your dad and your brother. I don't think you were even with the guys.
Oh.
Wasn't there a time you went duck hunting and a duck got landed out in the water or something? You guys weren't able to retrieve it?
No,
What was it?
Quail hunting.
Was it quail?
Yeah, that's a great reminder. This was last year.
Oh my God.
And it was me and my dad. And it just so happened that this was on this is maybe in January on one of those days where it was 50 degrees in January, but the previous week it had been super cold, and there was ice on ponds and so anyway, yeah, I mean, I am not one to let game go under any circumstances. I think if you catch it or you shoot it, you have and it's not in a position where you can let it go with fish, it's your obligation to take care of that and retrieve that meat as best you can. And so anyway, my dad and I had come up on this covey of quail with our bird dog, and we have a really good bird dog. It's a German short hair pointer, and he pointed this one covey, and we went and got on it and shot a bird, shot I think one or two birds on the first flush of the covey. And the way that quail flush is that they'll flush out and they'll fly maybe 100, 150 yards, and then they'll land. And they take a little while, but they'll bunch up again. Or you can just go after them and go after doubles and singles and triples. And so we were chasing this covey of quail through this kind of a valley on this ranch land that had a couple stock ponds on it. And anyway, we were chasing them, and we got two the first time. We kept on going. We got two more. We kept on going. And then finally we came to this spot where our dog was just super birdy, and we knew there was at least one or two birds in the area. And my dad and I were both real ready to go. And lo and behold, these two birds pop up, and we both shoot them both. And my dad and I doubled up, and these two birds landed out in the middle of this farm pond that had ice on it. And I think there was a little patch of water out in the middle of the pond where there wasn't ice, but these birds landed on ice. So our dog, Jax, he's a really good dog, but he does not like the water. He hates the water. And so anyway, me and my dad are trying to encourage him and be like, come on, go get him, boy.
Please, and, God, go get those birds.
Please, just run out there and get them. Because he would take a few steps onto the ice, and then the ice even cracked a little bit, and he'd freak out and run back. And then, one time when he was running back, he fell through the ice, and it wasn't deep or anything, and he's a strong young dog, so it wasn't like we were fearful if he fell through or anything. But anyway, once he kind of got wet, he said, no more, I'm done with that. And so
not for me.
My dad looks at me and he's like, well, Jax is going to be really disappointed if we don't get those quail. And he's like, you going to go get them? And I was like, I guess so. So anyway, and there's video of this. I stripped down to my underwear and I went out there, and it ended up being about waist deep. And I went out there through that ice and breaking ice out to these birds, and I got them, man. And that was a fun time. I'll never forget that. That was a lot of fun. My dad and friends and I, we all got a good laugh out of that. And you know what? On those, on some of those days, the key is to, really strip down as much as you can and then keep your other stuff dry, because once I got out and I put my dry clothes back on and we got to walking some more. We didn't shoot any more of those birds, but we got to walking some more, and it was just like, it wasn't too bad. I don't regret it. I didn't regret it. I wasn't miserable, but I don't know if I could have done it on like a 30-degree day. That would have been hard.
It probably definitely helped having like a nicer day out for sure. But
yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean, whenever we post this episode, we'll definitely have to find that video.
Yeah.
And like after we post the episode, like everybody go check this out. I think the next day or two we're going to have to share that video because people are going to be like, "All right, dude, where is this clip?" But no, you're mentioning like the whole retrieving thing. Did I ever tell you about this was like 2 years ago? I was in South Texas doing some dove hunting, and I had these 2 dove flew over perfectly, and the problem was I was at like a ranch out in the brush country, so it was like all you had was like the senderos, like the little roads.
Okay.
But you didn't have big open fields.
Yeah.
And so you had to literally calculate in half a second, if I shoot a bird here, is it going to land in the road or is it going to disappear in the brush? Because once it's in the brush, it's gone.
Yeah.
Like, I kid you not, there was a couple birds I had shot that landed a couple feet in the brush. I could not find them for the life of me. I'm like, where did they go? But I had 2 birds flew over, and I was like, yep, these guys are good. Bang, I shot one, and then I emptied my last 2 shells on the other one, couldn't get him. But if I would have just shot the first one and just, focus on him, I could have stepped to my right by like maybe a foot and stuck my arm out, and I easily could have caught this guy. He landed that close to me.
Oh, wow.
And to this day, I kind of wish I would not have focused on that other bird and just caught this one, so I could be like, yeah, you remember that time, like I told you guys I caught a bird after I shot it, but...
Yeah, that's a cool thing.
Oh, dude, it was yeah, I mean, it was fun, but anyways.
That's fun.
Do you have any other striptease stories for us?
No. I've gotten in the water a few times, but... when you're first starting out getting into fishing, there was a few years ago when I started out into bass fishing real hard, and I had bought a lot of tackle, and I over the course of that year I probably spent $200 on different lures and just stuff for bass fishing only, and I would go out to these ponds around Wichita, and one of the ponds I went to was a KDOT pond, and it's one of these public places that just looks prime. Like, there's all kinds of deadfall in the water, all kinds of brush and dead trees in the water, and you just look out there and be like, man, there's got to be a fish under every tree. There's got to be so many bass and crappie and all kinds of fish in this lake. And it's really just one of these lakes that's just like a lot of the public ones. It's way overfished, and there's not that many fish in there, and I don't know how well it's managed or not, but I went out there for a whole day one time and fished all day, and pretty much just got snagged on different stuff, and it was an extremely frustrating day. I got close to catching one bass where I saw this bass chase my lure back to the bank, but it was towards the end of the day, and I had casted out and got my lure stuck on this log probably about 20 yards away from me there in the water, and I was just, walking around trying to tug on it every which way, trying every trick I knew how to get that lure unstuck, because that was like, I had literally bought that lure probably 2 days prior, and it was I think it was a $6 or $7 lure.
Oh, yeah.
And I wanted that sucker, and so anyway, that was one of those times where I didn't strip down any. I just went out there in my shorts and shirt, and it ended up being like neck deep, and I got that lure back out of that pond, and I was happy to have it back. And as soon as I got it back, I just left.
You're like,
I was
that's
just so done with it.
So you really didn't catch a whole lot of fish, though.
No, and I've had I did the same thing at Matthew's house too, and Matthew can tell these stories. Pretty funny where, I think I was fishing with one of Matthew's lures or something like that, and I got it snagged on a rock at Matthew's house. And it wasn't quite the same situation. We were probably catching fish because we always catch fish at Matt's, and this was a fall day though, and it was relatively cold.
Oh yeah.
And I went and tried to get that lure. I actually didn't end up getting that lure, and that one was a funny time.
Oh man, yeah, that's always the worst feeling. Is like you're doing decent casting, maybe catch a couple fish, and then you make that one fateful cast, and you start reeling in, and then
Doesn't move.
no,
It
just that
move.
sinking feeling of. I mean, if it's a cheap, who gives a damn kind of lure, then whatever. All right, snap it off. But,
exactly.
But yeah, when it's your freaking gem of a lure, oh, that's my lucky lure, and you just feel it snag up. Oh,
exactly.
There's the only worst feeling is when you have one of your PB fish at the surface and it snaps and you watch that thing swim back down. And I'm totally not talking from experience or anything right now. That's just the worst. Oh yeah, I had a catfish that I literally got to the surface, and I mean, dude, if I would have landed this thing, easily the biggest catfish I would have ever gotten. Like one of those guys you could have stuck your whole arm down its throat like without a problem.
Wow.
And I was just like, oh my God. And I was being skunked. Like, it was on a trip. And the whole, like, prior 3 days, everybody else was catching fish. And I could not catch anything for the life of me. And I was, like, the main fisherman of the group. And I was like, dude, this is so discouraging. I just can't catch anything, man.
Where was that at?
I think somewhere in Missouri. I don't remember. This was years back. But I think the biggest thing was everybody was catching perch. And I didn't want to catch perch. I wanted to catch, like, good fish, right?
Yeah.
So they were all... little perch lures, and I was like, no, I'm going to catch something big. So I'm throwing anything I knew about fishing, I was throwing out into this lake. And then finally one day, I'm like sitting there and I'm checking one of the lines I had out, and it literally felt like I had a log on there. It wasn't even fighting me. And I'm like, golly. At first I thought it was stuck, but then I'm like, it starts moving. And I mean, like, I'm having to kind of work this thing. I was like, shit, this thing's kind of heavy. And then finally it starts coming, and I feel one little sway. And I was like, that's not a log, dude. Yeah. And, I'm working it. And I had, like, 10-pound tests on. I did not have the right gear for this fish. Like, it was just one of those things. He grabbed my line. I was like, oh. And as he got closer, I finally saw a silhouette down there. And I'm like,
oh, my goodness.
Oh, no, he is gorgeous. And it keeps coming closer. Came to the surface. And I was just about to go down to try to grab him. Snap.
Oh, no.
And whoever I was with, they saw my legs just fall from underneath me. I was ready to dive. And I kid you not, if this person was not there to grab me, I was about to jump in that lake and go get that fish, man. I was like, that was easily one of the biggest fish I've ever caught in my life.
Yeah.
And it didn't even swim away fast either. It wasn't like snapping and it was like that slow, you ain't getting me today.
Oh, man.
That one hurt. I was ready to just go full close, dive in, grab that sucker. But yeah. So that's the only thing worse than knowing you just got caught with your lure on a friggin' stick or anything. But
yeah, I have one a little bit like that. That same year I was really getting deep into bass fishing. There was this pond near my house in the neighborhood where I lived where I would go and fish some, and to date, I'd probably only caught 3 or 4 fish out of this pond. It's not a very good pond.
Yeah.
But I would go there sometimes when I was bored, and it was this day when it was all cloudy and kind of cold, and it was a terrible day for fishing, really, and I was just bored. I really had nothing to do. You can only, do so much video games and sitting around the house. And so I went to this pond and spent like 20 or 30 minutes there, and when I was about to leave, I caught this bass, man.
Mm-hmm.
And he was a pig.
Oh, man.
Just like a really nice fish. And I had reeled him in all the way to the bank, and he was like right out of the water, right on the bank. And this bank was pretty steep, and it was only like probably 3 or 4 foot, but it wasn't where I could just swoop down real quick and pick him up.
Yeah.
And so I tried to pull him out of the water more and swing him up onto the grass, and he got off of my lure right there next to the water and hopped right in the water. I never got to hold him, and he was just like, in my head, I just felt like that was like a 5 or 6-pound fish, and
Yeah.
that's a big fish in my book.
Yes.
Sure
Well,
disappointed.
for anybody, like, obviously the majority of the people who probably follow our group or hopefully will be listening to this are from Kansas. So if they fish, they understand Kansas is not a fishing state. I
Not
mean,
really, no.
we get some decent catfish here. Like,
Yeah.
I've seen some tanks of catfish get pulled out. But when it comes to bass fishing, guess what? The pro bass fishing tours aren't coming through Kansas for
No.
anything.
No.
So yeah, I mean, a 5-6 pound bass in Kansas is
It's a good bass.
that's a stud, you know. But
Yeah, Nate. I mean, I'm sure I don't know what the state record bass is in Kansas, but you know, it's not like the guys in the South or in Texas where you know you can go out and you might be able to catch a 8, 9, 10, even 12-pound bass. Like, no, you're 5-pound bass in Kansas is a real nice bass.
yeah. So yeah, dude, those are. Oh man, those are heartbreakers though.
Yeah, but they're fun. They're fun to lament and remember, and you know, it makes you want to keep going out for more.
Yeah, and I mean, if you ever get that big old fish later on down the line, it's kind of almost a. This has been coming a long time, you know, and it's I guess the satisfaction for those of us who have lost those. So like, I definitely have not caught a catfish as big as the one I did or I would have had. But if I ever get something that size, then is that going to feel good, you know? So
yeah, definitely.
But no, I hear you though. All right, you got any others for you before we sign off here?
Man, I think that's all for me tonight.
Okay, we'll jump back on here a later date, but thanks for all the strip teasing stories this time.
Oh, you're welcome. I know you enjoy those, Matt, Austin.
No, we'll definitely have to find that one clip of you going out for those quail so we can share that with everybody, because I remember you sending that to all of us, and god dang, man, we could not stop laughing. Like, I remember personally, I got that and I was just busting out laughing, staring at my phone like, wow, this guy really just did that. But anyways, all right, buddy. Well, thanks for tagging up with us, and we'll see you on the next episode, all right?
All right, sounds good.
All right, see you, man.